Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Sanyukta Saxena, certified Zentangle teacher, and in today's session I'm back with another Zentangle original patterns. If you have been following my videos, we are doing this series on Zentangle original patterns originally released by Zentangle headquarters, and we have already learned a couple of patterns by now. So in today's session we'll be doing the pattern tag. If you had a chance to have a look on my Facebook page, how does the pattern look like? I had posted a teaser. So let us first learn how to draw the pattern tag, and then we'll draw a tile together in this session and practice the pattern tag along with a couple of more patterns, right? So let's get started. So let us first see how do we draw the pattern tag, right? So if this is the space that is available with me, it can be drawn in any space. So how do we start? We start with these inverted U shapes. Right? So I'm starting with this inverted U shape, and when I move on to the next row, what I'm going to do is start here so that this point falls somewhere in the center of the next curve or U, right? So this is the only one point, single point to mark here. The next row that you do, this point should fall in the center, right? Why? I will just let you know. So this is the second row. The third row that I start, I'll make sure that this point falls in between the next inverted U, that is inverted U above it, right? That is what gives the pattern its real look. However, it is not any hard and fast rule that you have to draw it in this way. Even if you draw one here, it's okay, right? So now the next step is to add these bud or little droplet kind of shapes in these center points, right? So this is the center of this U. So I'm going to add these small droplet, or you can say small bold line, right, like these. So since they are coming in the center of the U, so you can add in the center of the first line, right? So this is the basic pattern tag. Isn't it simple? So here comes the next row. So it's just a simple curved U shape that I'm using, drawing it in such a fashion that when I add these small buds at the intersections, they give me this look like this, right? So this is the basic pattern tag. We generally add shading where these buds are here, or you can add shading outside these U's, right? Outline these U's, or you can add shading at the intersections. Both ways looks fine. Right? So just a mild shading. When you add shading in this way, it gives an overlapping effect. Looks like they are overlaps, one above other, right? So looks nice. So let us use this pattern today to draw a tile, simple tile, right? So in front of me is a Zentangle, and I'm going to give a thin border here. With my pencil. Again optional. If you wish, you can use the entire tile, right? And now I'm going to start right away with the pattern tag. So how am I going to arrange it? I'm going to arrange it in a circle today, right? So I'm starting like this, right? So I'll go on drawing these inverted U shapes like this, trying to make them equal in size. But again, don't bother about these things. As we always say, there is no right or wrong in Zentangle. Patterns are suggestions to draw in a certain way. If you draw it in that way, good. If you do not, good. You just created a variation, a tangulation, and everything looks nice. It's pure art. Right, so that's the first row. Now I'm going to add one over it. So I'm just making sure that this point lies somewhere in the middle, right? So just continue drawing in the same fashion, the inverted U's or curves. Just make sure that the next row is drawn in this fashion, so that when you add those small buds, they give a certain look which is intended in this pattern tag, right? But at the end of the session, I'll show you some tiles where I have not used this arrangement. I have used different arrangements. The pattern is still tag, but again we create a tangulation by using it in a different way, right? So I'm going to add one more. They sometimes look like fish scales to me. Their size will gradually squeeze as you add more of these rows, right? So I'm adding the third row here, just making sure that the intersection is in between my next row, right? Yeah, so that's the third row. I'll add one or two more in the same fashion. So the next step, as we know, is to add these small buds, right? So what I'm doing is adding a small droplet kind of shape and filling it in, right? Add these intersections like this. Right, so just a small bold line, you can say. Right, so this exercise has to be done at all the intersections that we have. So take your time, go slow, be patient, keep rotating your tile so that your hand is comfortable and doesn't move much from your comfort position. So it's important that you move the tile as you move ahead. right? So I'll do the same here and also in the last row, right? So I'm now going to be doing the last row, assuming that there is a row underneath, right? So just giving a small feeling that it is showing a little from the last row, right? So since they are all coming in the between, so I am adding a small little section of the bud as if it is showing from the last row, right? You may not add this one, is that it gives a fuller look if I do it this way. It's up to you. Right, so that's the basic pattern tag. I'm going to ink my border. So now the rest of the tile, again it is up to us. How do we want to go about? What tangles do we want to fill in? So I'm first going to add an aura, as I usually do, so that my tag is kind of separated from the next pattern that I'm going to introduce. Right, so adding this close aura to the inside before we start with our next tangle, right? So I'm now going to add a rough circle here, right, most likely in the center, and then add these gorgeous like shapes. I'm going to be using the pattern gorgeous, so I'm just drawing roughly these shapes inside which I will be drawing my gorgeous, because gorgeous has kind of this shape, right? So I'm giving a pencil outline to guide me with my next tangle, that is gorgeous, right? So what I'm going to do here is draw gorgeous in a slightly different fashion because the spaces are less. So I'm going to be using a mix of thick and thin lines. Like this. Not going very systematic here, just drawing a mix of thick and thin lines. To draw my gorgeous, right? Again, the next one. Again, the next one. Right, so I've just taken a cue from the shape that gorgeous has, using that shape but filling it in a slightly different way, just as we do in a fragment. Right, so drawing these shapes first and then we are going to fill it in. And the last one here, like this, right? So I'm going to be doing all in the same fashion, right? So we'll be drawing a mix of thick and thin lines. Creating the same effect but in a different fashion. Again, a thick line, almost inking it but not completely, leaving gaps. Again, a thicker line, again a thin line, a thicker line. So just alternating it. Right, so we'll do one more in the same way to show you all. I'm not bothering much about how thick or how thin, just alternating thick and thin lines. Like this, right? So we'll do the same exercise throughout. So I'm on the last one now, starting from the center, thin line, again a thicker one, again a thin line, again a thicker one, right? Thin line, a thicker one, again a thin line, again a thicker one. So just keep alternating, and as you can see, the look is right. So this is how our gorgeous look. So the next step that we are going to do is add a dash of color, right? So I'm going to add a little color here. This is Sakura brush pen that I'm using, right? So it's very easy to color using these brush pens. So I'm just using them to ink these beautiful sections or shapes that we have created in between our gorgeous, right? And then we move on to shading our tile, and then we'll see what we want to do with the center. There's so many ways you can do. Add tangle, add a gem, add a simple printum or something like that, a fragment, anything, right? So we'll see what we want to do with the center part. First I'm just adding a dash of color to my tile using the brush pen, right? I'm going to add the same color here also. To my border. And then we start shading our tile right away. So if you want, you can draw over this brush pen also, tangle over it. We'll see whether it's required or not as we proceed to finish our tile, right? So now let's start shading. So I'm going to add some thick graphite at the edge here. Right, and then some here. So I'm going pretty hard on my pencil. I want this portion to look different or inside my tag. Right, so I am pressing pretty hard on my graphite and trying to create an impression that the gorges are inside or inside an enclosure created by my tag, right? And then I think I would like to add some tipples here, these spaces that are left in between. Like this, right? Just adding a few tipples here, small ones. Right, so I added tipple everywhere, and then you can either add some shade here on the buds, or you can, as I told you earlier, shade here, which makes it look like overlaps. So I'm just adding some graphite quickly on the buds, just a touch, don't want to overdo. Right, so just touching these buds with some graphite. Like this.